Felicity Yarn Studio podcast. My name is Zoe, I'm your host, and as always, I'm so happy to have you guys here today to talk about the fiber arts. So for me, that mainly entails knitting, a little bit of crochet. I'm a beginner spinner, and I also dye yarn. I don't normally talk about yarn dyeing. It is something that I want to start working into the podcast, and I do have something relevant today to talk about with that. But yeah, if you'd like to follow me on social media, I am at Zoe Nichols on Instagram and Ravelry. So that's KNITCHOLS. And you can find my hand-dyed yarn on Etsy, also under Felicity Yarn Studio. So again, big thank you to everyone who's joined me today. How have y'all been? It's been 2 weeks since the last podcast. It feels like it's been longer for some reason. And on the last episode, I had a little bit of a giveaway because we have reached 100 subscribers. So a big thank you to everyone who entered, everyone who subscribed to the channel. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun to interact with you guys. So the prompt was, tell me about your favorite holiday or your favorite holiday tradition, Christmas tradition. And it was really great reading all the responses, and I totally appreciate how many of them were food-based. I totally get it. So the prizes that were up for grabs were sock sets from my Etsy shop. These are my holiday and Christmas colors. This one is the Winter Wonderland set, and this one is the Christmas Jammy set. And so there'll be one winner for each of these. So what I did was I sorted the answers from first response to last, and there were 28 entries altogether. And I did a random number generator. So the first one goes to number 20, and that is CraftyCrabbyKnits. And they mentioned that all the women in their family go to their grandmother's house and go in the kitchen to bake cookies together. So I thought that was really sweet. And the second one is to entry number 8, who is Kathy Garber. And she mentioned that 3 days before Christmas, they bake gingerbread cookies for all of their neighbors and go pass them out. So that's really lovely, and I love baking Christmas cookies myself. Actually, my favorite Christmas treat are, in our family, the recipe is Clem's Black Bottom Cupcakes. They're a chocolate cupcake with a cream cheese filling with like nuts and sugar on the top. Oh, they're so good. That's what I request from my mom every year. So maybe during Vlogmas, I'll make some and post the recipe for y'all because they're delicious. All right, so got sidetracked thinking about sweets there. If the winners will contact me either through DM or private message on Instagram or Ravelry. If you guys don't have that though, just drop a comment in the box down below, and we can work something out via email. So congratulations to y'all. Yeah, I think that's it for administrative stuff. All of the show notes will be down in the description box below. If you guys have questions about anything, I'll try to provide links to what I talk about today. So I think I'm actually going to start off with spinning because I guess I have finished spinning objects. I guess if they're all plied and skeined up for spinning, that is technically some finished objects. If you don't want to listen to anything about spinning, then I'll put a timestamp in where I get to my knitting and very little bit of crochet to talk about this week. All right, so when last we spoke, I had 2 bobbins full of EchoView fiber that were ready to be plied together, and that is what these are. So this is kind of like the first real spinning that I feel like I did. I mean, it's all real, but I guess because I plied it together, this feels like real stuff. So the big skein has approximately 162 yards. This one has approximately 70 yards. And when I finished plying this first one, I still had a considerable amount left on one bobbin. And that's because towards the end of that second bobbin, maybe it was off of the first one, I don't know. On one of them, I was spinning more finely, more consistently, because I had really gotten the hang of it at that point. So that's where I was left with a little bit of extra. So this just overall is a little bit more consistent in the weight. The ply is a little loose on these compared to some of the other stuff that I'm going to show y'all. But I've kind of worked out my plying technique through like 3 or 4 things that I've plied now. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with this stuff. It is very soft. I'm thinking I'm going to put these aside with some other hand spun that I have for a blanket one day. My sister Naomi, who, if you're familiar with the podcast, you'll know who she is. She is the yarn curator. She also has a podcast. You should go check that out. She has been spinning for a lot longer than I have, for years, and she has sent me lots of hand spun over the years, so I've been kind of collecting various weights and whatnot for a blanket. I'm not sure if I want to knit or crochet a blanket with hand spun one day. I think knitting would show it off better, but crochet is just so much faster. I prefer to crochet blankets. I have knit them in the past, but we'll see. So that's my EchoView. And I still have about 10 ounces of that fiber left. I have a couple of thoughts. What I might do is, I saw this really cute, I guess it was like hand crocheted cat bed thing when we were at SAF, and I was like, oh, I could totally make that. And I think the cats would really love it. They've been sleeping in this little bed thing that I bought for them recently. And that might take up all the rest of the roving that I have. So I might just, I'd like to buy like a sweater's quantity of fiber from EchoView and spin myself a sweater's quantity, because I have a crazy dream to do a all over cabled sweater. And now I wanted to do the cabled sweater for a while, but now I'm thinking out of hand spun, so we'll see. I don't know if I'm a crazy person or not, probably, but that's the down the road project. Anyway, back to current things. So I did the EchoView not last weekend, but the weekend before, and I fell down the spinning rabbit hole hard that weekend, because Sunday, I guess it was Sunday, I spun up this and I plied it together all on the same day, which I know you're supposed to let your singles rest like 24 hours before plying them, but I was too impatient, and I really haven't noticed any ill effects with this. Granted, I haven't knit with it yet, but anyway, this is from Smoky Mountain Fibers. I'm not sure if this is going to blow out or not, but when I bought this, it was at the Asheville Farmers Market, and it was in a plastic bag, and it was just like little balls of various colored roving yarn, not yarn, and I think they were all supposed to be skin tone colored, now that I look back at her Etsy page, because there was like pink and brown and peach and a couple like creams. So I had originally bought this for Naomi to spin for me, and she never did. I sent it, mailed it down to her, and she never spun it. But she bought a drum carder about the same time that I got my wheel. So she made some bats for me out of little balls of fluff. And I'm really glad that she did, because it was really interesting to but it was really interesting to spin with color, and especially in that preparation versus just from a strip of roving or the braid. Up until this point, I had just been spinning like bare single color yarn. So yeah, it was really fun to see the colors play with each other and have a little bit of control, or, you know, kind of input into how it was all coming together. So I feel like this comes across a little more yellow on screen than it actually is. It's actually a nice kind of peach tone in person. Surprise. So I was kind of thinking, I have 149 yards of this, and I think it's about a sport weight. I don't have one of those wraps per inch tools, which I guess I could just wrap this around a ruler or something to really figure out what weight I have, but it looks about a sport to DK, and I was thinking I could hold it with the leftover Angora that I have from my Elton, the fuzzy peach color, and make a really cute hat. So we'll see, but this is definitely going to get made into something. It was scratchy immediately after spinning it, but after washing it, it softened up a whole lot. So yeah, I'm really pleased with this. This is probably my favorite little thing that I've spun so far. So yeah, like I said, I fell hard that first weekend, and my shoulder got ridiculously sore for a few days after that. Like, I could barely lift it, barely do anything, and it was just from the repetitive pulling back motion. It still feels funny when I do that. But I got the itch again a couple days later, and I decided to go ahead and start the braid that I picked up at SAF. SAF is the Southeastern Animal Fiber Festival that is held in Asheville, which is nearby. It's a pretty big event. So I picked up this braid from Ewephoric Fibers. Let me see if I can get their picture up here. And this was a blend of Polworth and silk, 60% Polworth, 40% silk. And I believe that I got about close to a fingering weight on this one. Because I measured it, I got about 428 yards. So after my shoulder was sore, I decided to kind of take spinning in slower chunks. So like I would just sit down at night and maybe do like this much of a braid. And that worked for the first half until the weekend hit and I had the second half to spin, and I kind of fell down hard again and spun most of that second half of the braid last weekend. And then last night I sat down to ply this. I did let my singles rest this time. Again, I don't really notice a huge difference. So I stayed up late and I plied this, and it was about 12:30 at night. First, let me backtrack. The Polworth silk blend was a little bit difficult for me to spin. Probably because I was trying to do it so fine. It definitely felt like it was jumping out of my hands at times, and I had to really kind of slow down until I got into a rhythm, I got started, and then I could go speed up a little bit. So I didn't super enjoy that part, but let me get back to where I was. I just knew I would forget that if I didn't put that out there now. So yeah, I went to go wash this last night, or soak it and then let it hang up. When I put it in the water, it immediately turned like bright blue purple color. And I was like, that's a lot of bleeding, which was odd because it didn't really like deposit any dye on my hands when I was spinning with it. So that was a little disappointing. And again, it was like 12:30, 1 o'clock at night. And I was like, well, crap, I wanted it for today. So I just dumped it all into a pot, and I put some citric acid in the pot to help set the dye. So what the dyes that most people use that aren't like plant dyes, they get referred to as acid dyes. It's not because the dye themselves have acid in them, it's because they require acid. Well, they require acid and heat in order to adhere the dye particles to the yarn. So I'm guessing either there wasn't enough acid or there wasn't enough heat when this fiber got dyed. Now, if you're at home and you're washing something like your fiber or your knitting or whatever, and it seems like it's bleeding a whole lot, there's a small amount that is considered acceptable, and there's a name for that. But if it's like it turns the water the color of the yarn, that's probably not ideal. You can do this at home. If it's non-superwash, you just have to be very particular and pay attention to your heat. So if you're at home, you can add white vinegar to the water. I use the citric acid crystals just because that's what I dye with. I prefer that it not have the vinegar smell to everything that I dye. And you heat it up. I believe the ideal temperature is somewhere around 190 degrees. If you go much higher into boiling, you really risk felting non-superwash yarn. But around that range of 190 is where the dye particles, if you've got the acid in the water, will adhere to the animal proteins. So when I immediately rinsed it, it turned blue, dumped everything in the pot, added citric acid. Before it even got up to temperature, a lot of the blue had started to adhere, and I was left with a bunch of pink in the pot, which is not surprising because a lot of purple dye is pink or red and blues mixed together. And then another kind of fun fact about pink dyes is, or red dyes, you will be left with a lot of fugitive dye in the water until it cools down completely. For whatever reason, it needs to cool in order to adhere to the yarn. So don't freak out if you have red or pink and you do this process and it doesn't immediately like catch onto the yarn. So yeah, so I left it to cool overnight. I let it sit at temperature for about 10-15 minutes. I let it cool, and I got up this morning and the water was pretty much clear. So crisis averted. The only thing I'll say is it was mildly disappointing because as I was spinning and pulling parts of the braid apart, there were kind of like white undyed or very like pastel kind of undyed sections of the fiber. And since it reabsorbed some dye in its already spun form, it did kind of lose some of that pastel. It's a little more uniform in color, which is not the end of the world. It's still a gorgeous skein. And yeah, so the silks made it a little bit nubbly. It's still a little damp. It's been drying all day and it's still a little damp, but I love it. This will become something I was thinking when I was spinning it, kind of maybe like a one skein shawl, or a cowl or something. But actually, I think Naomi spun me some Polworth silk, and it's in a blue and purple. They're more distinct, like blue and purple, that are, if you blended them together, would make this color. So I don't know, maybe I'll work those two together. We'll see. So yeah, that's that. I feel like I've blabbed a lot about spinning right now and dyeing. The only other kind of thing that I wanted to mention about spinning real quick is, I'm sure most of y'all are familiar with the fact that a lot of the crafts that we like to do and practice can be quite pricey. They're a pretty big financial investment. My wheel, even though I got it at 40% off, was still a big investment for me. And I do want like a proper Lazy Kate and the jumbo flyer and bobbins, so I can eventually ply a larger amount into one skein. But those are going to be in the not too distant future down the road purchases. But for the time being, I'm just kind of making do with some of the things that I have here. And I just wanted to show you the setup that I'm using for a Lazy Kate. So I actually did some searching on YouTube, and I came across a video where a lady used a paper bag, shopping bag, and kind of folded it in to make a sturdy-ish rectangular shape box. I guess you could use a shoebox too. And then she poked it with a knitting needle and put the bobbin on that, and used plastic bags at the bottom to provide some tension. So I essentially did the same thing, just with this plastic basket. And I've only got one bag in the bottom here, but I think I used 2 or 3 to really get the tension that I wanted. And honestly, it worked perfectly fine for me. I'm trying to remember the quote. Jason told me one time, a good craftsman doesn't blame his tools. So, I mean, I was able to ply a nice tight 2-ply with this, and it's working perfectly fine for me. Again, I do want to buy the like real proper thing at some point. But again, that's another like $70. So what's working for free will work for me for right now. The other thing that I just thought was amusing is I had made this like 12-13 years ago when I first started knitting. For whatever reason, I thought I needed a nitty knotty. It's my PVC pipe nitty knotty. I don't think I've used this since I made it until I started spinning, and I've used it more in the last like month than in the last like 13 years. So $5-ish, I don't remember. You can make it as big or as little as you want. Totally works. It's not glamorous, but it totally works. All right. Now that really is the end of spinning, I believe. So that brings us to knitting. I do have a finished knitting object, but I cannot show it to y'all. I know that's a bit of a tease. I'm doing a Facebook swap, and our partners are secret, and it's a surprise box that we open in December. So I have one more little holiday fair that I am attending next weekend over Thanksgiving, and after that I'm mailing my box. But I don't think this person is watching my podcast, but just to be safe, I don't want to ruin any surprises. That being said, my other kind of secret knitting that I can't show y'all is still my, adventuring wrap. I'm sorry, I keep glancing down at my notes here. This is the AMBAH O'Brien, or one of her 2019 Advent patterns. And it is, the pattern's not a mystery, but I cannot show y'all the yarn because it is supposed to be a surprise for those who purchase one from a shop. So that's my shop sample that I'm working on, and I have gotten a couple more colors added onto that. I would just like to have mine done a little bit ahead of time. So those are my two little kind of secret knits. Let's see. I guess I'll go ahead and do this real quick. So I have been working a little bit on my Battenberg blanket since the last time I showed y'all all of that, which was like episode 2 or 3. So the Battenberg blanket is a pattern by Sandra Paul of the CHERRYHEART podcast. And I am making a king size blanket, which from my calculations will need approximately 3,300 squares. Yes, 3,300 squares. Here are a couple that I did recently. So I've made 4 of each color because I am trying to work in like a quadrant loosely, and then kind of evenly distribute some of these colors. But you need, half of them are like colors and then the other half are just plain white bare yarn. So it'll be kind of a checkerboard effect. So I really only need to make approximately what, like 1650 of the colored ones, and then when you make the white ones, you'll join as you go with those. So I'm a third of the way there before I can really start joining these. Now I did spend a night or two just sewing in ends on one of the quarter segments of, actually on 2 of them. So most of my ends have been sewn in at this point. I need to sew in these ends on the ones that I did, but I don't think I mentioned this. The total count that I have is 524, and that includes 32 bare ones that have been joined. So I'm getting there. It's not super interesting podcast content, but I have been feeling the pull to work on those again, so I'm gonna kind of keep working on them in the background. Maybe I'll update y'all when I hit another like kind of milestone number of getting those done. Yeah, so that's my only crochet to talk about. Let's see. So then next, I have gotten a little bit of progress done on my Christmas socks. So this is some lollipop yarns. Lollipop yarns. And I believe this is a colorway called I Believe in Santa Claus. Really cute self-striping Christmas colors. I don't normally go for this kind of like, I don't want to say they're juvenile, but they're like very primary colors. But I'll wear them for Christmas. I think you can get a little I don't know what the right word is, but I think they're cute for Christmas. That's all that matters. So basically, I think I'm at the point where I want to put in the heel. Although now that I'm looking at them, I might want another repeat before I do the heel. I had originally thought about trying to squeeze 2 little pairs for my nieces out of this, but I think I'm just going to do them some socks from my shop yarn instead. Yeah, so I was at the Progress Keepers last time, but yeah, I don't know, I might do another repeat, we'll see. But I want to do a short row heel because I've not ever done one of those, especially, or I just haven't ever done them. I'm curious how it'll fit on my foot because I do like the way, a heel flap and gusset fits my foot. Afterthoughts fit okay, but they can be a little bit loose, but they look good with self-striping. So it's a bit of a trade-off, I feel like. So I just need to sit down one day and look up a good tutorial for a short row heel and figure that out. I did buy the Fish Lips Kiss Heel pattern. And for a pattern that's not really a pattern, it's 16 pages long, and I was like, you lost me. Like, just give me a video or something compact that my brain can process, because I couldn't make heads or tails of the instructions in there. Maybe I need to go back again and look at it, but yeah, so that's my Christmas socks. The next pair that I've been working on are a new cast on. Living in another glamorous item here in my plastic bag. I think I have another free bag, I just haven't pulled it out yet. So many moons ago, I promised Jason that I would make him some hand-knit socks. He could care less either way whether I make him socks or not, but I feel like I need to. Even though he has gigantic feet, like he wears a size 14 or 15 usually. So I knew because his feet were going to be huge, and I don't know how things are going to fit his foot, that I wanted to do toe up. And I've not ever done toe up socks before, and I have not ever done magic loop socks, much less 2 at a time magic loop. So I started some of those. So this old dog can't teach an old horse new tricks. I don't know. I'm learning new tricks. So I've increased up to 80 stitches after the toe, or for the toe. This is a little mini that I used from my shop in kind of a charcoal gray. It was just a little sample that I had, and I believe I've called this Smoke and Ashes. So yeah, I didn't really find any patterns for anything larger than a 72 stitch sock, which is what I make for myself. So I did kind of slip this over his toe the other night, and it seems to be fitting his foot fine. I may increase out one more time once it gets to like the widest part of his foot, but probably not. I think I'm just gonna roll with it. So, I mean, I've made plenty of socks. I understand how they're constructed and the way the math is supposed to work out for a heel. So I'm not really worried about improvising for that. I don't know what kind of heel I want to put in for his yet. I'm really not sure that I have enough yarn for heels after making this giant toe. So I may just save this for the cuff, and I may find another mini or something to do for the heel, because I do want to utilize as much of this yarn as possible, which is also why I decided to go toe up on these. This is Lang Yarns and Twin Socks. So it's another one of these deals where you're supposed to get 2 matching pairs of socks. And I read the instructions on the inside of the label when I started, but apparently it didn't like click. You were supposed to pull from the inside of the ball to start the first one, and then when you got to the middle, the next half of the yarn should have matched up perfectly. But I started winding from the outside of the ball of yarn, which meant I had to spend an evening trying to figure out where they matched up and rewind a few things. So there may have been some cursing involved, but it's all good. They are matching up now, so pretty happy with how these are coming along. So even though I'm doing my Christmas socks also 2 at a time, it is a little more satisfying, I will admit, to have them both working up equally at the same time. Magic Loop still isn't my favorite, but I'm not hating this right now. And I think that has to do with the CHERRYHEART needle, or cables on the needle. They're definitely the best cables out there for anything like this. They're just the best cables out there anyway. Because yeah, when I work on my Christmas socks, sometimes I'll get going on one of them and then I'm like, oh, I gotta catch the other one up to it now, and then I don't want to do that. So yeah, it's just two different ways to achieve the same goal, I guess. Let's see. I'm not gonna pull out my Urban Jungle hat. I only did like 3 more rows on it, and it's all scrunched up on those needles anyway. I still haven't printed out the chart, which is why I haven't made any progress on that. Which means the only thing I have left is my Stalactites. And it got pulled back out. It was already out of timeout, but it had kind of been pushed to the back burner. So it kind of half lives in my fringe bag because it's once again getting too big to fit properly in here. So let's see. Here is my Stalactites, which I feel like I have talked about sort of endlessly on this podcast. Now that I have adjusted the size, things seem to be moving smoothly. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the Stalactite saga, I had gotten further than this. I think probably 1 more repeat down and about halfway to 3/4 through a sleeve before I realized this thing was going to be massive on me. My gauge was off. Make sure you swatch, y'all. So I had to rip back all the way up to here to where this top progress keeper is before that first slip stitch pattern. And I determined based on my gauge that I was getting that I needed to go from a 2X down to a large. So that's nice. But yeah, so when I did that, then I knit to here, and the last time y'all saw it, I was at where the kitty cat is, so I've knit 2 slip stitch patterns, and yeah. So I'm enjoying working on this again. I'm appreciating how quickly DK, it's probably more like worsted, almost bulky yarn is going for me. This is Croft 29, which is a natural dark brown black Hebridean wool that I picked up in Scotland at Edinburgh Yarn Festival earlier this year. It's a little bit, it's a woolly wool for sure. I'll probably wear like a long sleeve t-shirt under that when I wear it. And for the little slip stitches, I'm using Brooklyn Tweed Shelter and the Foothills colorway, and I really love this yellowy greeny gray color. I kind of want a sweater or something out of this. It matches my earrings. So yeah, I kind of think I need to do a sleeve just to make sure I'm still on track with this before I get much further. I know that's probably crazy, but I'm super paranoid about this now. So yeah, so I'll be taking stalactites, probably my 2 socks, and maybe even adventuring with me through Thanksgiving. It's probably way too much knitting for one like long weekend trip, but hey, gotta be prepared. You never know when something is gonna take a left turn and stop cooperating with you. So yeah, that is basically it for kind of knitting and fibery content. I may take a small break from spinning through December. We'll see. I mean, I don't want to take a break, but I also feel like I am kind of racing through my stash of fiber at this point. I need to slow down, maybe knit with some of this stuff before I kind of go in head over heels. So yeah, and I've been thinking a lot about 2020 coming up, kind of what I want my goals to be, where my projects are right now. I was thinking about what I'd like to finish. Where's my notes at? Just kind of been thinking about what I'd like to finish for 2019, and at the top of the list is stalactites because I'd like that for Christmas. Then would be my Christmas socks, obviously. And I suppose I should be a good wife and put Jason's socks as third. And really anything, oh, and the Advent shawl. So those are like the top 4 things that I feel like need to get done by Christmas or by the end of the year. Anything beyond that, so that would be like my jig shawl, my semi-precious blanket, and the hat, I kind of feel like are January goals. And I definitely think that is all doable. I just need to kind of concentrate between now and then, and not get sidetracked. Spinning and even dyeing cuts into my knitting time, but dyeing is my source of income, so it's not really the same thing. But anyway, that's kind of where my head is at. And then the only other thing that I was thinking about throwing out here, I'm kind of jumping the gun here, sorry, Nay. Naomi and I have been talking about 2 things. First, opening a kind of a joint Ravelry group for both of our podcasts. That way we can have a place to open some chatter threads and whatnot. Also because we've been thinking about a knit along, which I'll get to in a second, but yeah, neither one of us feel like we want to take on, or we don't each want to take on running a group when we could do it together. So that may be something that happens in the not too distant future. I need to get with her on that and kind of work out some of the logistics. But yeah, we're thinking about doing a small little knit along in January. Maybe calling it something like New Year Old Yarn Cow. So the idea would be to knit from your stash, probably for like the first 3 months of the year, so through the end of March. And I don't know, I think both of us are okay with like whips being allowed, kind of trying to clear and reset and be a little bit mindful at the beginning of the year. I know both of us went to 2 pretty big festivals this year. We've bought a lot of yarn. I know I still have plans to buy more yarn. It's gonna be on sale though, so I gotta stock up too. It's a problem. So yeah, I know I have at least 2 garments, probably more like 3's worth in my stash. And I again have multiple whips that I would like to get cleared out. So yeah, that is probably gonna happen. Like I said, we'll both kind of announce like all of the ins and outs and official details and stuff when it gets a little bit closer. Yeah, so that's that. Sidetrack, or reversing myself here a little bit. I think I want to make myself a personal goal, and we'll see if I stick to this, of knitting entirely from stash for 6 months. I think 6 months is doable. I know I have enough yarn for that, but I think it's doable from the sense that it doesn't feel as like overwhelming as not being able to buy for a year. And to me, that won't involve equipment or fiber, because I have so little fiber right now. So we'll see. Anyway, that's all that. And I feel like I've said that about 20 times now. As far as non-knitting things go, Jason and I watched the show Good Omens on Amazon Prime. We both enjoyed that. And then I've been listening to why am I brain farting? The Golden Compass, the first book in that series, His Dark Materials. I saw that HBO was making the show, and I never read the book, and I never watched that movie that came out. I don't remember when it came out, 2000 something, 7 maybe? Anyway, yeah, so I wanted to listen to the audiobook before I watched the new show, and that's been a really interesting experience, because I listen to a lot of, I gotta word this correctly, I like to listen to audiobooks for adults, not adult audiobooks. Anyway, the children's book, young adult, whatever it is, has been interesting because there's a lot of different voice actors playing different characters, versus like one narrator doing all of the voices, so it's been pretty entertaining. I really don't like listening to male narrators, especially, I don't mind them. I don't like when they do female voices. I know that's weird, but I don't mind. I'd rather listen to a woman do a male's voice than a male do a woman's voice. Just the way they do it is always like off-putting to me, kind of obnoxious, and like almost like a caricature of a woman's voice. I don't know. It puts me off. And the narrator is a very important aspect of an audiobook. So anyway, I'm enjoying that. And then I saw yesterday that the new season of The Crown is on Netflix, and I watched the first 2 or 3 episodes of that yesterday. It's weird getting used to the new actors playing the same characters, and like the show looks the same and feels the same, but there's new actors, and it's interesting from like an art perspective or like an artistic choice. But I don't know. And when I see Tobias Menzies playing Prince Philip, all I can think of is Jack Randall from Outlander, and that's all I'll ever see whenever he plays anyone in anything. So that's weird too. But anyway, I really enjoy that show, so I'm hoping the more I get into this season and get comfortable with these actors, yeah, it should be good. I really love season 1 and 2 of that show. So I believe that's it. I hope y'all enjoyed my Christmas cactus, which is like in full bloom over here. I have another little one. It's all red, and it looks like it's gonna bloom next week. So I'm glad we're here to enjoy that. Yeah, I think I should go ahead and sign off though, because I'm getting a little bit rambly. Thanks so much for joining me. Thank you to everyone who entered the giveaway. And again, congratulations to the winners. Don't forget to get in touch with me about getting your addresses for the prizes. And if I didn't mention already, I can't remember, I'll be doing Vlogmas, but in like more of a weekly format than a daily format. Vlogtober was a little bit much daily kind of filming and uploading for me, so I'm going to kind of save things up throughout the week and then upload them. And I will possibly see you again next week. Mom and I were texting and she mentioned maybe filming a little mini-sode when we come back next week for Thanksgiving. Give us an update on her knitting progress. So yeah, I don't know when I'll get back to a full podcast, probably in another couple of weeks. So I hope you guys have a happy Thanksgiving if you're celebrating. I hope that your knitting makes you happy. Thank you again for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Congratulations again to our giveaway winners. And yeah, I will see you guys again soon. Bye.